Today, we'll compare Amazon Quicksight Q topics with DataChat, focusing on how both platforms support natural language questions from a business user's perspective. For this demo, we're working with the same dataset in both platforms, about 6 million rows of BigQuery data covering big box retail information about products, customers, orders, and categories. To keep things fair and realistic, we've made some platform-specific choices based on user experience. In Amazon Quicksight Q topics, we've pre-joined these 4 tables into a single view within our topic. That's because Q requires relationships and joins to be defined up front, typically with help from a data team. Most business users won't define these joins themselves. In DataChat, we've left these tables separate. DataChat supports on-the-fly joins, automatically recognizing how tables relate as questions are asked. This eliminates the need for modeling work or SQL knowledge in advance. With that setup in mind, let's dive into the first question, which requires pulling a data point from each table. I'll ask, show me a bar chart of total television category sales by income level for California for people between the ages of 20 and 40. In Amazon Quicksight Q topics, we get a response, but the first version of the answer shows total quantity, not total sales. This happens because sales haven't been defined in the dataset. So I'll go back to the fields and create a calculated field to define sales as quantity multiplied by unit selling price. Then I'll rerun the question. This time, we get a chart that more directly answers our question: total sales by income level. On the left, we see a plain English summary with additional insights. We can also view the answer explanation, which shows the filters and steps Q used to generate this result. Looking at DataChat, we're immediately given a plain English summary explaining how the data assistant arrived at the answer. We can see the joins, filters, and aggregations used. We also get an interactive chart as a visual. In addition to this, we can also view the underlying workflow showing each step taken: filters applied, fields joined, and the correct calculation of sales as quantity times unit selling price. And, if needed, we also have the ability to view the full SQL statement as well. From here, I'll ask a question that relies on external knowledge, specifically the date of the Super Bowl, and tests whether the platforms can apply that logic without being explicitly told. I'll ask, visualize sales by state for television category sales 3 weeks before the Super Bowl in 2023. In Amazon Quicksight Q topics, the question succeeds, correctly inferring the 3 weeks before the Super Bowl, which happened on February 12, 2023. Once again, we're provided with a summary of the insights as well as 2 different charts visualizing this result. Looking again at the result explanation, we can see the correct filters were applied here. Looking at DataChat, the platform is also able to infer the event date automatically. It applies the correct filters, January 22nd to February 11th, 2023, and provides a bar chart showing television sales by state with a full natural language breakdown of how the answer was derived. Looking further into the underlying workflow, we can also confirm the result's accuracy. Next, I'd like to be a little bit iterative with this question and instead ask for the same data, but for 2022 instead. Because DataChat retains conversational history with context of the previous questions, I can simply follow up with, "How about in 2022?" In contrast, because Amazon Quicksight Q Topics doesn't support conversation history, this follow-up question won't work on its own. I have to restate the entire context. Television category sales 3 weeks before the Super Bowl in 2022. Q is able to successfully reason with my question and applies a similar analysis as the previous one, this time only providing a single chart instead. DataChat, however, remembers the context of my previous query. By simply asking, "How about in 2022?" it understands that I'm referring to the same analysis as before. It adjusts the date filter, retains all of the previous logic, and returns an updated chart. This kind of iteration allows users to explore data naturally, the way they would with a colleague, without repeating themselves or reconfiguring context. Checking the underlying workflow here also confirms the updated dates were applied. Now, let's test how both tools handle vague business terms, specifically surrounding seasonality. I'll ask, "Create a comparison bar chart for category sales split by Christmas season versus the rest of the year for all years." This question leaves Christmas season open to interpretation. In Amazon Quicksight Q Topics, the model can't understand without an explicit definition of the Christmas season, either through tag dates or a calculated field. Without that, Q tells us the question can't be answered as is, and instead returns a fallback chart showing total sales by category name. DataChat, on the other hand, makes a reasonable assumption. It infers that Christmas season likely refers to December, and applies that logic across all years, returning a valid comparison chart, splitting Christmas and non-Christmas sales by category. The summary clearly explains the logic used, and when we check the workflow, we can confirm that December was applied as the holiday range. From here, we'll define the season more precisely, Thanksgiving through December 25th of each year. In DataChat, I can update this directly in the Data Assistant dictionary. I set Christmas season to mean Thanksgiving through December 25 and save the change. In Amazon Quicksight Q Topics, changes like this have to happen outside of the conversation. Since mid-conversation updates aren't supported, I'll leave the chat and create a new calculated field. This one's more complex, since I need to define the correct holiday window for each individual year. That kind of logic often requires someone with more technical expertise. Once that's done, I re-ask the question in both platforms, this time specifying averages. Q returns a bar chart showing average sales for Christmas versus non-Christmas season, but this time it uses category description instead of category name. I'll make a quick update to fix that. The chart updates, and the result explanation confirms the filters and aggregations were applied. Back in DataChat, the new logic has already been applied. It recalculates the averages using the updated season definition and returns a final comparison chart. The workflow confirms that it correctly interpreted and applied the date range from Thanksgiving through December 25th for each year, without needing to define those dates manually. While both platforms aim to make data more accessible, their approach and experience differ significantly. Amazon Quicksight Q Topics delivers fast, structured answers but requires upfront configuration and doesn't support iterative conversation. Business users often need to rely on data teams for setup and maintenance, especially when defining logic like custom date ranges or joins. DataChat, on the other hand, offers a truly conversational analytics experience. It connects directly to raw tables, performs joins on the fly, interprets vague business language, and allows users to refine and build on questions naturally, all in one thread. For business users, this means reliable answers without the technical barriers and far less time spent on setup. If your goal is speed to insight, DataChat gets you there, faster, smarter, and with less overhead.